So regarding this assembly that I have reported the bad behavior to the Autodesk support, I was contacted and I was advised that it is not working because none of the components is grounded, and especially Johnson insists that the component must be grounded in order to allow constraint solver to do the job properly. So here it is, the assembly with the previous video, with the flash 6 constraint set to the exact value. I will now change it back. So first of all, we have the degrees of freedom analysis on, and now I will edit that and made it a range constraint. And as we can see here, as explained in the previous video, these components here have improperly calculated degrees of freedom, and also this component here has the not correctly calculated degrees of freedom. This moves as I would like it to move, but when I try to drive the fold angle, I am instantly getting the error that assembly cannot be solved, the one that the previous video is about. So now I will ground one of the components. It will be this frame here. This one is moving, so it cannot be grounded. This one can be grounded. So when I ground this component, as we can see here, it has no influence on the degrees of freedom calculation. And also, as we can see now, sorry, fold angle, edit. As we can see here, no, not edit but drive. As we can see now, it has also no influence. It had no influence on the assembly itself. Well, once I grounded this component, its constraints against the top level assembly coordinate system are indicated as redundant. So I will now try to suppress them to get rid of the problem, and we shall see what the outcome is. So still the degrees of freedom are calculated wrong, and when I try to drive the fold angle, we're getting the same result. So maybe they are suppressed, maybe they still mess up. So I will delete them temporarily, and I will try to drive the constraints as before. So it is not working. So obviously it is not the case whether a component is grounded or not in the problem with the solving of the assembly and degrees of freedom calculation. So this is not the solution. Grounding a component is not a solution, especially that Autodesk does not have a one policy about grounding a component. Johnson insists that the component should be grounded. There is an article that I gave the link in the thread that you should not ground the component, and there is another approach that for the flexible assembly says that you should not ground nor constrain the components to the top level assembly, and allow the component set to fly within the assembly. None of the approaches work. So there is an obvious bug in the constraint solver and basically the assembly solving process, and this bug is related to how the constraints are used for the calculation. This assembly here is showing the behavior that is changing when flash 6 is changed from range to fixed value. So it is the place to look for, and not insist that the grounding or not grounding or making the components fly around is the solution. The solution is to find the bug